Okay, this is an approach to runway 26 at Big Bear Lake in California, up in the mountains. Altitude of the field is around 6,700 feet. And right now I'm headed to the west. I'm directly over the field in an upwind, and that is Big Bear Lake out in front of us with the blue. And you'll see terrain out ahead, a mountain that's a little bit higher than the white horizon line, which is level with us. The other feature you can see is the velocity vector, which shows where the airplane is going. That's the circle with the little wings and the tail. You'll see that most of the terrain out in front of us is below the horizon line, which means if I just flew straight and level, I'd go right over it. Anything that's above that, I would run into. So here comes a turn to crosswind, and I basically continued it to downwind because what you'll see here is the mountain ridge to the south, which is now above the horizon line. It's got ski slopes and things like that on it. Of course, we were in the dark. This was at night, so I couldn't see it, which is why I just preferred to keep turning directly onto downwind and not stay pointed at those mountains for very long. You'll see that we're 1,480 feet above the ground, or above the touchdown zone, excuse me. That's that green number underneath the velocity vector. And now we're turned right around the heading of about 080, which is downwind for the runway. Resolve a little bit later, we're getting ready to turn base, and as we turn base you'll start seeing the boxes of the highway in the sky, which represents the glide path and localizer of the synthetic approach. There is no ILS at Big Bear, but the Grand Rapids can generate a synthetic approach based on GPS data. So there's the box. As I come around, I'm on a base. I'm going to continue the turn on to final. We're 7,600 feet, so coming down towards the runway. As I said, it's about 6,750 feet, I think, is the field elevation. And now you'll see that I'm a little high. I'm above the boxes. What I want to end up doing is going right down through the boxes. So there I'm descending into them. You'll see the velocity vector come back. It's coming up red right now, which means it's limited. Now it's back to white, coming down from back up from the lower right corner. And you can see the green numbers. We're 500 feet above the runway. I'm settling back into the center of the glide slope. Doing about 78 knots, setting up for speed. And we're 1.6 miles from the center of the airport. So a little bit less than a mile to the 6,000 or 7,000 foot long runway. You can see that the goal here is to keep the velocity vector within the boxes, coming down on 300 feet. You've got to remember this was recorded on a night approach, and I was really flying visually, had good runway lights, and the weather was good. You'll also see now that the horizon line is down below all of those the terrain, the peaks, and the ridge to the right, which means that I'm pretty low. The other interesting thing is now the bottom of the highway and the sky boxes are sinking into the terrain because the center of those is about where the actual terrain is. The bottom of those staple-looking boxes now is where the actual ground is. So I'm coming down. I'm 130 feet, 73 knots, 100 feet, getting ready to flare for touchdown, 71 knots, 60 feet, slowing down, looking for the runway, feeling for the runway. And that little bobble there is probably about the runway. Right there is probably touchdown, 60 knots, 57 knots.